talk for a moment about counting rounds and stitches. So I've got a little swatch here where I've got 3 front loops and so on. So let's just look at the rounds. This was the first single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, so that's round 1. And I liked, when I count rounds, I like to count in the corners. So this would be 1 round finished, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 4 rounds, 5 rounds, 6 rounds, 7 rounds. So the next round would be round 8. This is closed, so the next round would be round 8. So we've got 7 rounds. Or you could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I've got some free front loops here, and you see that I worked in them before and then I frogged all the things. We've got a free front loop here, for example. Let's take this one because it stands out. So this is a front loop that belongs to this stitch here. Let's have a look here why that is so. If I make a single crochet, for example, in the back loop only of this stitch, it will leave this front loop free, so I can work into it in the next round or later on, 2 rounds later, 3 rounds later. So let's count those free front loops. We've got a stitch here which is in the next round. So when we come back here and we have made some single crochet, for example, then this will be our round 0. So this will be round -1. If I single crochet in the back loop only, leaving this front loop free, this front loop will belong to the stitch 1 round below. Then this front loop here will belong to a stitch that is 2 rounds below. This front loop belongs to a stitch that is 3 rounds below the next stitch. This front loop here belongs to a stitch that is 4 rounds below. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, and here would be 5 if there was 1. So minus, and they're always minus because of course you can't go plus. So that is counting your rounds and finding your free front loops in regards to the rounds. Now if we, let's say we quickly make a few stitches. So I've made 2 single crochet in this instance. Now this would be the next stitch. But for example, the pattern could say make a DC in the front loop of the stitch 2 rounds below. This here is round 0. This stitch belongs to round -1. This front loop belongs to the stitch that is in round -2 and is directly below the next stitch. So it would, for example, be a DC 0 because we don't go forward or we don't go back, in the front loop -2. So DC 0 -2. That would be like that. So we use the front loop of the stitch from 2 rounds below. That would be a DC -2. In order to avoid unnecessary increases, we need to skip the stitch that is behind this special stitch now, and we work into the next stitch. Let's just make 1 or 2 stitches. Just one more. So assuming the pattern would now call for a treble, so +1 -3, 0, next stitch, +1, we go down 1 round, 2 rounds, and 3 rounds. This is the stitch, and this is the free front loop. This free front loop is part of this stitch. So we go into this front loop in the example. So we go 1 ahead, 1 down, 2 down, 3 down in this free front loop here. That would be a treble, +1 -3. Okay, in the front treble in the front loop of the stitch, that is 1 ahead and 3 rounds below. It would be an angular stitch, and again we would have to skip the stitch that is behind this special stitch. This would be the stitch behind, and next we would work into this stitch here. Okay, so that's an angular treble, an angular special stitch. Now let's assume the pattern calls for a treble -2 -3. And let's count that. Remember, this is the current round, which is 0. This would be the next stitch, so we start to count from this. We go back 1, 2, and now we go down -1, -2, -3. So this is the free front loop of the stitch from 2 behind and 3 rounds below the next stitch. So for a treble it would look like this. Oh, I lost it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. It would be this front loop here. And if it helps you, you can always use stitch markers to mark those free front loops so you can find them more easily in the next round. And again, this would be the stitch that is replaced by the special stitch, so we have to skip it, and we would continue our work in the next stitch. So this was a backward angular stitch in the front loop.